Hi, Chris.
Hey, Nico.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. I personally thank you so much for being here. Chris is the CEO of Cervantex. He's based in the United States. They are in 45 markets in the United States. They have over 10,000 employees and also over 600 clients. What brought you to the Philippines originally? Let's start with that. And what was your experience here?
Yeah, so my wife and I moved to the Philippines in 2018. She had just finished a graduate program doing international development economics and an MBA, and had found a really interesting opportunity working at kind of an intersection of public policy, which was about labor mobility for nurses. And so she got a job doing that, which she was very excited about. And I was wrapping up a time working at Uber on the corporate side in the US, was looking for an adventure, and eventually found my way to working for Grab, which is the Southeast Asian equivalent of Uber. We wanted to live somewhere new, get some experience abroad. Philippines is a beautiful country with really great people, great food, and access to a really just exciting part of the world. You're short flights from a lot of really incredible places, both within the Philippines and also in the region. So yeah, we had a great time.
When you decided to build a team with us actually for Cervantex, I mean, I remember, I think you started in 2021. You started with one person, but then you relatively rapidly grew it. So what were the kind of the main challenges there?
Our business provides labor for the hotel industry, and COVID was extremely hard for us because all the hotels shut down. So
Mhm.
we lost a ton of internal staff. So our back office, IT, HR, payroll, billing, we lost half of our team during COVID. When we started to ramp back up after vaccines came out, there was a really rapid growth in business. But if you put yourself back into that mindset, we didn't know what else was coming. Was it the Delta wave, the Omicron wave? We didn't know, is everything going to shut down again? Where is business going to go? So it was a really challenging situation in which to plan. We wanted to be able to bring on more staff to support us. It was a difficult hiring environment. We wanted to make sure we were doing it in a risk appropriate way so we weren't overcommitting ourselves. And I had also, having lived in the Philippines, experience working with, wonderful people who are extremely talented and very hardworking. So I had a little bit of a vision of how do we do this and add capacity to our HR teams, our payroll and billing teams, our, all of those back office teams. How do we add skill and capacity without overcommitting ourselves? We work mostly on US Eastern time. The Philippines, any given time of the year, is plus 12 or plus 13 hours to US Eastern. So we could build a full 24/7 operation, have whatever work being processed overnight for the US, and actually reduce our cycle time and processing time to.
When you went from 1 to 11, and then later I think you ramped up even to 31 at some point, what were the challenges there?
There's a lot of pitfalls that companies can fall into. Honestly, all of it to me just comes down to empathy. And if you can have empathy for the people you're hiring and think of them like you would any other employee, a lot of times when people think of hiring people through another company or building teams globally, they think of it as outsourcing. If that is your mindset, you are going to fail at this. You are helping me find global talent that happens to be in the Philippines, but for all intents and purposes, that person is my employee. We have to onboard and train just like any domestic US employee. We have to have an appropriately scoped role, performance and feedback, career progression. All of my Filipino team members through Penn Brothers, they're humans with families and career ambitions. If you have a department that's a mess and you want to hire an offshore accountant to come in and just fix everything and think that they're going to be a miracle worker, well, that's going to be really hard to do. You
Yeah.
need to start with ideally an area that has a strong leader who is bought in. If the leader is opposed, it's not going to work. And you start there and you work with a leader that has good process, a strong, like a clearly scoped need and role, and then you hire a really talented person and they're going to thrive. Being really realistic about what time zone you need support during. Does this role require constant interaction and coordination to solve problems? You need to scope for handoffs, for coordination meetings. If you don't do that because it's inconvenient, eventually things are going to break down. Like, you have to do those things and invest in those relationships at the beginning. In the first month, this is really critical to bake in time zone overlap, because you can't onboard someone and never talk to them live. You need to appropriately designate decision-making rights, what issues require escalation versus not. As we scaled past a certain point, after we got to, I think, 15 plus employees with Penn Brothers, we named a Philippines-based manager so that she could help answer, Philippines HR questions and keep these folks, on task. That was also a big unlock.
What we also recommend and do ourselves is bigger, larger team meetings where this individual that is sitting remotely far away can also join and participate in those meetings and get to know and feel part of the team.
It forced us and required us, as with any business, to evaluate the actual teams that folks worked on. And it wasn't about, working with global talent or working with the Philippines. It was actually just us being a business and growing in complexity and needing to improve. Payroll is a really big thing for us. And I don't mean the cost of payroll. I mean literally running payroll. We are running payroll for thousands of people at a given time on a weekly basis based on timesheets across hundreds of clients. There are going to be corrections, but getting them in on time, to process them in time, to deal with the errors, get approvals, all that stuff, to pay, to close it on a Wednesday evening and pay on time on a Thursday is a lot of effort. We brought in a significant number of payroll specialists by Penn Brothers that help us do it faster and better. But really, the problems that were coming up were late exceptions, late approvals. And that was really about our client relationships in the US. So the unlock was actually us moving our timelines forward, working with our domestic operations teams who have these client relationships to basically train our clients and, in some cases, fire some bad clients who adhere and hold strict on our timelines. As you add headcount, you unlock the process issues, the decision-making issues. So some of the fixes for us were really rooted in ourselves. We've seen people get promoted. We've had people switch teams. Our domestic US employees view our Philippines employees as core members of their teams. And this is not outsourcing. This is just building a global team and putting the work in the right location. And the fact that we have really deep relationships, long-term employees, really low turnover is just good evidence of that.
What competitive advantage do you see in the Philippine talent pool as compared to the US or other neighboring Asian countries?
English is a national language in the Philippines. So I can depend on everyone I hire speaking high quality, good, for the most part, American accented English. There's deep economic ties between the two countries. And so there's just a lot culturally that relates well and understanding. And there's a deep, deep industry of offshore support for US businesses based in the Philippines, and a talent pool built around it that I think doesn't necessarily exist in the same way in neighboring countries.
How do we align offshore teams with our in-house practices and integrate them into our daily operations, especially in a hybrid setup?
Onboard properly, set up handoffs, really think about the role and what you need for it to be successful before you dive in, and then set it up appropriately.
How do we reduce turnover while building a strong, stable offshore team that delivers consistent results? The first 6 months, that hypercare that we call it, is critical. The person to be properly onboarded, and when it's properly onboarded and the KPIs are set, this onboarding, this hypercare cuts both ways. It's the employee and it's the client. Attrition in the first 180 days have significantly shrunk. I mean, by now we're down to about 12%.
Our turnover in our Philippines-based team is significantly lower than our US-based team. Not to be redundant, but it all comes down to the same stuff: proper onboarding, scoping, et cetera. As a non-Philippines-based business, we know that we don't always have the cultural context. So we actually
13
do
months.
have check-in conversations both with our local manager, but then also with our Penn Brothers relationship manager, where we'll ask, are there benefits that we're missing? What are the healthcare
Yeah.
benefits like? There are things called de minimis benefits. There's, holidays, all these different things where we know that we don't know that because we're not there. So we depend on Penn Brothers to help coach us to get that right. And if you put your head in the sand and don't listen, yeah, you might lose some people. So you gotta listen. You gotta be willing to change. You gotta be willing to stay abreast of what's going on.
Are you utilizing this model for any of your recruiting needs?
Yeah, so we have not. We have used Penn Brothers and offshore talent really specifically for a lot of our back office stuff. So some like IT, HR, payroll processing, accounts receivable, both recruiting and sales in our industry with hotels, servicing the hotel industry. We do that primarily in person. Recruiting and sales, like that's the core revenue generation of our business. And I want to see that person in person. Recruiters who recruit for nurses versus recruit for accountants versus recruit for hotel workers are all very different. Again, being careful, making sure you find the right person and are really dialed in before you do it matters.
Any last thoughts you have about the whole experience of building this team over the last 5 years?
I mean, I'm deeply grateful for it. Penn Brothers has been a really critical part of us recovering from COVID, building scalable operations, frankly, finding ways to find and identify great talent that we would have had a hard time both finding and affording in the US. If you're struggling, if it's hard to make it work, in my experience, that's not a condemnation of the country, of the concept of doing this. It's more of an invitation to ask questions about why it's not working and how you can
Yeah.
address that. Find a place to start that you think is going to be successful. Don't start in the hardest, most difficult part of your business because it's just, I think, sets it up more for failure.
Thank you for making the time today. This was a great conversation. I hope everybody here who was listening liked it and enjoyed it. Thanks everybody for being here and hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, Chris. It was a pleasure.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.